was built by the Irish escaping famine, Italians fleeing fascism, Jews escaping Holocaust, Black Americans fleeing slavery and Jim Crow, Latinos seeking a better life, Native people standing for themselves, Asian Americans coming together in Queens, in Brooklyn, in the Bronx, in Manhattan, in Staten Island, in this country.
This is your leader? This is the face of the Democratic Party? No wonder establishment Democrats are embarrassed. No wonder moderate Democrats are absolutely terrified for the future of this rapidly flaming ass fire. When I was growing up, the Democrats were smooth. The Democrats were the cool kids. They were charismatic. Bill Clinton, Barry Obama, these dudes oozed charisma. They were young. They knew how to relate to normal people. Today, the Democrats are the dorks from high school, the geeks, the girls who couldn't get a date to the prom. They have taken over the Democratic Party. Take a look here at Elizabeth Warren from high school. As you can see, they didn't have the luxury of color photography on the reservation when Liz attended Cherokee High School. You know what else I remember about growing up? I remember September 11th, 2001. It was the first semester of my junior year of high school. I remember sitting in first period English as the principal announced over the intercom that everyone was being sent home early. Several minutes later, we learned that a group of Islamists flew planes into the World Trade Center. Well, Casey, don't you mean radical Islamists? No, I mean Islamist. You see, that's one of the many mistakes that were made in the aftermath of 9/11. If you weren't alive or you were too young at the time to know what the hell was going on, it's hard for you to believe just how united the country was after 9/11. One of the easiest ways to unite an entire country, have a common enemy. In the aftermath of 9/11, Americans had a common enemy. Whether you were Italian, Mexican, white, black, Democrat, Republican, we were united against the very real threat of Islamic terrorists. Do you guys remember the slogan that was placed on images of the Twin Towers? It was just two simple words: never forget. 24 years later, it seems the Democratic Party has forgotten. Believe it or not, our good friend Georgie Bush, he's partially responsible. In the immediate aftermath of 9/11, there were no Islamic protests in the streets. You didn't see people waving Palestinian flags. You didn't see people in the streets of New York City celebrating the fall of the Twin Towers. Why? Because they knew it would not be tolerated. One of the monumental mistakes that Georgie Bush made after 9/11, which, by the way, decades ago, Reverend Jesse Jackson, he warned Americans to stay out of the bushes. Unfortunately, we didn't listen. But anyway, one of the mistakes that George Bush made after 9/11, he kept preaching this message of tolerance. Islam is a religion of peace. We must embrace our Muslim friends. The country refused to listen to the warning from Jesse Jackson, but we did listen to the lecture from Georgie Bush. Now, in his defense, this country, America, it was built on tolerance. This country was built on people from different cultures coming together who were willing to be tolerant of each other. And with the vast majority of cultures, it works. The problem is, it doesn't seem to work with Islamists, because Islamists are the definition of intolerant. If you look through history, the story is always the exact same. Islamists immigrate to a country, they claim to be the oppressed minorities, they use your tolerance as weakness, they demand for Sharia law to be implemented in their part of town, they multiply by having children, they slowly work their way into government. Next thing you know, you're a minority in your own country. Other religions are no longer tolerated. It's happened in Lebanon, Syria, Turkey, happening right now in England, France. And if New York City isn't careful, it could be happening right here in America. Make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Link to the second channel in the description below. Later today on the second channel, going to be talking about the ongoing destruction of the WNBA dump. The WNBA is screwed. The deadline to implement a new CBA is tomorrow, and it ain't gonna happen. I have been telling you guys for months that WNBA players are pushing for salaries that would bankrupt the WNBA, which is why the league is refusing to give in to their unreasonable demands. But now, it's not just Uncle Casey saying this. We now have a former sports executive warning the WNBA that these unreasonable demands will make profitability impossible. If you haven't already, click the link in the description below, subscribe to the second channel. The polish seems to be melting off the Zohran Mamdani turd. Headline at the Daily Express. Zorro's odds in NYC mayoral race plummet as campaign in panic mode. Hopefully, support for Zohran Mamdani continues to evaporate. Going into the week, Zorro had a 20-point lead over Andy Cuomo. Well, Uncle KC, how big was his lead on Kurt Sliwa? Kurt isn't even a contender. A flea has a better chance of lifting an elephant's ass than Kurt Sliwa has of winning this race. But to his credit, Curtis Sliwa is not backing down. He is refusing to drop out, and I don't really blame him. Why should Curtis Sliwa clean up the Democrats' mess? Why should Curtis Sliwa sacrifice his campaign to help this embarrassment of a party? You know why Zohran Mamdani won the primary in New York City? You know why Zorro seems to be popular with Democratic voters? His socialist policies might be shit, but at least Zohran Mamdani is offering something. For the last 10 years, the only message the Democrats have sent to their voters is, Orange Man bad! Democrats have no identity, or their identity is constantly changing. One day they're identifying as a man, the next day they're a woman, one day they're they, the next day they're them. We have talked about this many times before here on the channel. What is their platform? What is their plan? Who is the leader of the Democratic Party? If they're not careful, Zohran Mamdani is going to be their leader. And that has establishment Democrats absolutely terrified. For starters, Andy Cuomo has tightened the race in New York City. According to recent polling, Andy has cut Zorro's lead in half. If Curtis Sliwa drops out of the race, entirely possible, Andrew Cuomo wins. Now, of course, that's not going to happen because Kurt refuses to drop out. One of the reasons that Zorro's lead is shrinking, he continues to be exposed. Yesterday, Zohran Mamdani was exposed by his own mother. An old interview resurfaced from, I think it was back in 2013. Zohran Mamdani's mother, she essentially admits that her son is un-American, anti-American. According to Mom, Zohran Mamdani is Ugandan first and Indian second. Well, no wonder he gets along so well with Elizabeth Warren. Who knows? Maybe Liz will contact myancestry.com and reveal her Ugandan heritage. Initially, I was worried about Zohran Mamdani becoming the new mayor of New York City. We've seen what happened to the Islamic Republic of Minneapolis. We have seen what happened to the Islamic Republic of Dearborn. I don't want the same thing happening to the financial and media capital of the world. But Casey Jillian Michael said that we should ignore his religion. We should focus on his policies and quit being afraid of Islam. Yeah, go ask the people of London what happens when you choose to ignore this. The thing I really admire and respect about Islamists, they're not afraid to tell you exactly who they are. I like that. I appreciate it. I will always appreciate when people are honest with me. And when Islamists are honest, when they tell me they refuse to assimilate to our culture, when they tell me their goal is to convert the world to Islam, Uncle KC believes them. But I am no longer worried about this race in New York City. Matter of fact, I think Zohran Mamdani winning in New York City, I think that would be a good thing for the rest of the country. Now, obviously, it's going to destroy New York, but New Yorkers, they are getting exactly what they're voting for. They're getting exactly what they've been voting for decades. But for the rest of the country, the election of Zorro, it will give added momentum to the Trumper who is already on fire. And it's the reason that establishment moderate Democrats, it's the reason they are terrified of Zohran Mamdani winning this election. They know if he wins, the Democratic Party is finished on a national level. You don't have to take my word for it. Listen to our good friend Jake Tapper. Watch for yourself.
I think Gen Z is going to be a lot more conservative. I think that just my experience knowing Gen Z kids, my kids and their friends and whatever, I sense a much more skepticism of, and I think it is a reaction to Gen Xers and millennials forcing on them progressive views in school. I think there are going to be some conservatives. It is a reaction to the failures of progressive movements to achieve what they wanted to achieve, whether it's Bernie Sanders, whether it's Black Lives Matter, whether it's Me Too. I think it's COVID. I think it's a lot of progressive politics being forced down their throats in school.
I used to make fun of Gen Z. I used to call them Gen Z LGBT, but lately, these kids in Gen Z have pleasantly surprised me. Not only do most of them not drink, they don't smoke, they don't do drugs, they don't do a lot of the things that Uncle KC was doing at their age, but a lot of these Gen Z kids, they're paying attention. They're not buying into this utopian myth of socialism or democratic socialism or communism, Islamism. You can polish the turd many ways. The end result is always the same. Zohran Mamdani is going to be a serious problem for New York City. According to recent polling, half the city agrees that he's going to be a serious problem. Half of New York City expects crime to be out of control if Zohran Mamdani is elected mayor. But for the rest of the country, I think Zohran Mamdani could be a positive. You see, Zohran Mamdani is the symptom. He's not the problem. AOC is the symptom. Bernard Sanders is the symptom. They are not the problem. Bernard Sanders has been pushing communism for decades. He was just known as the lunatic in Congress. He was known as the dude who thought everything was free. You know why people are listening to Bernard now? You know why people are listening to AOC LGBT and her bestie Zorro? For 10 years, Democrats have refused to offer an alternative. For 10 years, Democrats have had weak leadership. And when you have weak leadership, when you refuse to offer an alternative, it's like fertilizer to socialism and Islamism. Fortunately, the rest of the country, along with a sizable portion and growing portion of Gen Z, seems to be awake. Unfortunately, for those in New York City, you might be the example of why socialism does not work, and it could lead to the demise of the Democratic Party. Sound off in the comments below. I'll see you guys later.